11, so it's a great time to.
Right there, yo, rise and shine. It's not noon yet, so I still can say rise and shine. That's a 90s classic right there called Something Wicked This Way Come. That's Andre Three Stacks and TLC. I always like that album, and that song. I mean, I always like that track, and that's off the Crazy Sexy Cool soundtrack. I mean, album. I don't know why I said soundtrack. But today is Sunday, January 25th, 2026. It is 11:17 a.m. And I titled this one, I don't know if you can see by my thumbnail, lack of character has destroyed the black community. Why you can't see it? Characters over character. I don't know if you can hear my cat in the background. And I just made a video saying, before you got a cat, did you know goddamn cats talk so much? And I would not know. But anyway, I'm gonna try not to be as long. But and he in there with the fussing with the other cat. But lack of character has destroyed the black community. And as you know, I got on my thumbnail Charleston White and Umar Johnson. And I just picked them randomly because you really can pick out of a bag of misleadership, misguidance, miss everything. And more so than Charleston White, because I talk about him all the time, I want to get into Mr. Prince of Pan-Africanism, self-proclaimed. Nobody calls him that but himself. Nobody calls him that but himself, and unsuspecting, unaware, following fools. So let's be clear. The fact that, how I want to say this, I've been pissed off at the quote-unquote Pan-African community, wherever that is. But I've been pissed off at that section for a while. Because here's my thing, and I said this on the live yesterday. Your decision making and your choices and your level of understanding is based on your conscious level. It's based on your level of consciousness, right? And it's also based on, I would say, your level of integrity and courage. Because some people that claim to have this grandiose high level of consciousness, and they can tell you about the light codes and the elements and, you know, the how many follicles you got in your head, and, you know, if you use this to do that. But you can't understand simply when somebody is taking our respected ancestor and Marcus Garvey and not only misusing but deceiving people in his name. Deceiving people in his name. And because we are religious people, and because we still are conditioned to the slave monster, most people don't want to do anything about it. And I'm going to tell you another thing that pissed me off. It pisses me off when people, I understand where you at when we say, I don't want to put down another black man. Notice it's always the black man. I don't want to put down another black man on a public platform because I don't want the white man to see me like, I don't want the white man to see us doing that. And I can get where you trying to come from, but we still let how the white boy feel dictate our what we do. If you still dictate everything on how that white boy feel and what white people are gonna think, you might as well say you care about what white people think. You can't rule because you say, I don't want to call nobody. If you don't want to do it in private, sometimes you got to deal with it publicly. Umar Johnson has been scamming in the name of this bando school for damn near 20 years. And what bothers me about the so-called conscious community, that it is always the non-conscious people that are bringing it to light. I came across a brother, and I listen to him all the time, Lennon Honor. And Lennon Honor does the most work in I'm not going to say exposing, educating on Umar Johnson's dysfunction. But because we come from these enslaved thoughts, right? Because we've been mistaught, what goes on in this house, stay in this house. As my cat got the zoomies. What goes on in this house, stay in this house. And in my opinion, in a lot of ways, that could be abusive talk. See, we talk to hold shit within without ever doing anything. Right? And the reason we can't never clear anything because we always got dysfunction. And notice on my thumbnail, I said, and the reason why you can't see it. The reason why most of you can't see it because you still operate at that conscious level. You still operate at that level of niggerdom. That's why you don't see nothing wrong with what Umar Johnson doing. I told you your dichotomy and your mental dichotomy is what you are trained versus what you see. You see him misleading. You see him misrepresenting. But most are trained to ignore it. This is why we can't get there. This is why we can't get the community together. See, we can talk all of this. We want to look good, and we want to look good in pictures, and we want to look good in theory and online. But true change comes in results. Like when there was a gentleman that got in my live yesterday, a Morris gentleman that got in my live, and he wanted to talk about his perspective. Cool, cool. If that's what you want to do. But every village ain't the same. We have a ton that we have to clean up under these colors. A lot of people just get these colors, and a lot of people never went through a real, I always call it purification process. You went from one extreme to another. You went from the extremes of probably Islam. You went from the extremes of Christianity. You went from the extremes of organized religion. And you got out of that, and you needed somewhere to go, and you came into this. But you never cleansed yourself of that westernized way of thinking and that westernized religious way of thinking. So you brought that docileness over here. This is why, because notice the same way they treat you, Mark Johnson, whenever people expose light or whenever truthers speak about that, they do the same way the Christian church do, whether it's T.D. Jakes, Eddie Long, a host of others that have misrepresented and done a lot of fucked up things. I just can't say it no other way. Because you are taught you are taught this reverence for your reverend. You're taught this reverence, and you're taught to just blindly follow. Just like when that fake Panther dude popped out of nowhere in Philly, and so many people were ready to run behind him. Because everybody want a hero. Whitney Houston said a long time ago, everybody's searching for a hero. And so we ready for this knight in shining armor. We ready for this black man that's gonna tell everybody what to do. And that leadership is fucking you up. That looking for a leadership is fucking you up. That looking for a leader is why you can't understand things clearly. Because once they put you on that organized religious frequency, once you was put on that frequency, you were trained to follow. You were trained to worship. That's my pastor. Notice now all they got to do is say they're a doctor. All they got to do is put a doctor in front of their name and you follow. You don't vet character. That's why I said characters over character. You love Charleston White dysfunction because you still operate at that conscious level. You don't understand what happened to your people, so that's why when you got Negroes like that, they get in there and they get in the middle of history. And in my opinion, they go from the 70s or the 80s down and they teach and they preach to you, or they go from the 90s down and they preach to you about black dysfunction. They tell you how disgusting you are, and you believe it because that's your racial self-worth level. You believe it because you say, because you go. I was on another live the other day that I was hosting, and I had this non-black guy that came in, and he wanted to tell me because he was in the proximity of black people. And because he grew up around black people, and he got a pass to do this, that he could identify with the same struggle as having this black skin. And because we don't know how to clear the line or say, no, we allow a lot of this dysfunction going. I played a video yesterday, I played an audio yesterday of Charleston White, and I think he was on somebody, and I want to use the Fair Use Act for what it's worth. I'm gonna play that video, and this is what I mean. They talk to you at your conscious level. Let me see if I can find that video. Listen to this.
That's network exclusive.
There's very little that God can do with today's black people because they don't have the heart of the slave. They still popping pills, they still drinking, and they make babies like Kushan Rock baby.
Do you feel like this is stemming from generational curses in the black community?
I don't give a damn about the black community.
Oh, what advice would you give to the parents who are facing these situations?
That's what I said, boy, y'all producing a bunch of dumbass kids that's going to prison just like they daddy.
You don't have hope for your own community.
I was raised in the ghetto, so this is not my community.
So what would you say would be the common ground?
My kind don't shoot at the nigga mama house. My kind won't shoot at a nigga with his baby like Lucy did with Woody.
What point did you wake up and decide to say, you know what, I give up. It's no helping, there's no fixing this.
I figured out how to get some goddamn money. So all these fake niggas died broke, and their kids ain't got no legacy.
What was one message in your earlier days that you aimed to tell to the people, our people, that they just didn't listen?
How many of you niggas been to prison? See how fake these whole ass niggas get, they don't raise their hands.
So what advice would you give to the
No, you can't get nobody no advice.
You wouldn't.
I'm ready to get up out of here. This some bullshit. This is a waste of my time. If they have a motherfucker with ideas and ain't gonna do a motherfucking thing afterwards. Yeah, I'm like, everybody make my go. I see y'all later at that time, and I got that mace on me. If a nigga want that guy.
Ooh, I like.
Did you hear that? I don't give a damn about that. You just a poor nigga with some ideas. See, we allow this to keep happening. We allow black people, low-functioning black males, because I can't say females. If you name me a supposed to be leading woman, a black woman, I'll wait. And don't give me Shahrazad Ali because she gives broken talk. She's not no leader. She panders to the brokenness of the black male ego. So you have these people that come in and they will tell you, I don't give a damn. I got me some money. Get you some money. Cool. Because like you said, now there was a true thing in there. You don't just want to be a poor person with ideas. But I would rather be a poor motherfucker with some just ideas than a nigga like that got some money. Because they can't serve or help you out of this no more than the person that just got ideas. He continues to do the same antics, jumps up, act crazy, talk about he got his mace on him for a nigga that got back. Can't none of these hoe ass niggas keep it real about going. You lead with disrespect. Because that's the conscious level that they talk to you on. That ain't no different than Kamala Harris bringing them folks up that'll pop ass for votes. That's the conscious level and the respect level that they meet you at. And we ain't even gonna get into the tangerine toucher. We not gonna get into people that follow that fucking degeneracy. And they are allowed to say this disrespectful shit. And because that's how you respect yourself, you say, oh, that's right. Yeah, you got to get you some money. Get you some money by all means. Get you some money. Yes, get yourself out of this situation. Yes, take care of yourself. Yes, take care of your children. Be able to do things. Be able to give your children things that you didn't have. But keep your goddamn integrity intact. Why is it that they never can goddamn get the paper and keep their integrity? Because that's not how it's permitted for you to be a black man in the spotlight. You gotta be like that. Because you represent non-threatening. Afternoon, man. Ezra, afternoon, yo. And I'm tired. I'm tired of that being how a black man gotta be to be considered a leader or successful. So if you ain't got no hope and you don't give a fuck about your people, why do you waste time? I can respect a Candace Owens more than I can respect a Charleston White. Because she get her sellout ass on that side and she stay over there. So I know where her conscious level is. See, chameleons like Charleston White are dangerous. Because he's bipolar. He gets it, he says whatever fuck he does because he knows the condition of the people that he's talking to. I played a clip on one of my old pages, and I'm transitioning over here, so I'm gonna be live here more often than I ever have been. And I was talking about Mama Frances Cress Welsing, right? And me talking about her, it led me to talk about how many people had seen the movie Baby Boy. If you 80s and 90s like me, how many people have seen the movie Boomerang? And they build characters around Mama Frances Cress Welsing, who wrote the ISIS papers. From the elder that taught her, Neely Fuller Jr. And they build these movie characters around her, and our people don't even know it. Because more of our people know who Jane Elliott is than Frances Cress Welsing. And in the opening scene of Baby Boy, Tyrese tells you there's this psychiatrist named Dr. Frances Cress Welsing. And I'm paraphrasing now. And she talks about basically the black male development. It goes into the things of what does a black man call his friends, his boys? What does he call his girl? Mama. What does he call his place where he lays his head, his crib? Meaning that we're always reduced to arrested development in a sense. I'm paraphrasing. That ain't what she said. We're always reduced to this boyish state. So they jump up and they scream like Charleston White, I got me some money, good. Just like Negroes like Anton Daniels, I got me some money. Notice Anton Daniels always talk about how rich he is. I'm rich, I have money, I have money, I have money, good for you. Because what they don't understand, they just like that degenerate Donald Trump that don't give a damn about the afterlife, because you're not taught to think about what happens after your body your soul is discarded. You're not taught to think about that. Most guys that think like that, they think that my heaven is right here, so I'm gonna give me some money. My heaven is on earth. I don't give a fuck about how I'm acting. What profits a man to gain the world but lose his what? And in that, she talks about the 9 areas of people activity which we are controlled in. And those 9 areas is entertainment, education, economics, law, labor, politics, sex, religion, and war. And because we don't understand those different levels, that's independent, but they also connected. Because we don't understand that, we think we got this ultimate free will and we just walk around and everything is just by chance. I told you, he said they're still popping pills. Notice, I always told you with these house niggas, the only thing they're going to do is down their people by labeling them. You have low racial self-worth or low racial esteem when that's the only thing you can talk about is the negativity or the negative aspects of the black race. That's how to spot somebody that has low racial self-worth. They see and they speak, because remember I said your conscious level, it determines how you think. See, to me, in my opinion, I'm gonna separate my opinion from what I feel is fact. My opinion, you can be well read. You can be well read, you can be studious, you can be all of this, you can be college educated, you can have your money, you can have all of these ducks in a row. But if you ain't dealt with that internal problem of how you see yourself and how you see your people, you have a low conscious level. That's my opinion. Some probably would debate different, right? So let's deal with the entertainment part. So the first 3, we got entertainment, education, and economics. And we're talking about the 9 areas of people activity, and I added one. So we're talking about the 9 areas of people activity in which we are governed, in which we are ruled in. The first thing, how they capture us through entertainment, right? So Charleston White is very entertaining. I ain't forgot about Umar, fat ass. Umar is very entertaining. He's very entertaining. They both claim to give you an education. Now I'm not even gonna talk about how the white boy do it right now, how the white boy trick you with these areas. I'm talking about keeping in the theme of my thumbnail. Right? So when they put these supposed to be figures out in front of you, and you say Charleston be talking the truth, TROOF. He be saying the truth. Anybody that tell me Charleston White talking the truth, I understand where your conscious level at already. I understand if you think Charleston White speaks truth, you have a very low racial self-worth automatically. Right? So let's go through the entertainment. We have the entertainment. How have they misled? How have they been able to control the minds of the black masses? We're not talking about the global masses right now. We're just going to talk about us. Because, see, in order for all that shit that Charleston White be saying that we still popping pills, we still making babies like Krishan Rock, that's a dig at Krishan's special need baby. In order for us to be as violent as these Negroes get up here and say we are, I always say this. And I invite any white boy, any black conservative, any nigga like Charleston White, because that's nigga frequency, to tell me this. If black people have always been the bane of society, if black people have always been destructive, demonstrative, and out of their minds, and we've been pill-popping junkies, we just been the biggest producers of black-on-black crime. Where was that in the 30s? Where was that in the 40s? Where was that in the 50s? Where was that in the 60s? You see what I'm saying? These things had to be introduced to us. How did we go from songs like, I think it was Sam Cooke, correct me if I'm wrong, don't know much about history, don't know much about biology, don't know much about a science book, don't know much about the French I took, but I do know is I love you, and I know that if you love me too, what a wonderful world this would be. How did we go from feeling about that, about our women, to every time I had somebody to say it to me in one of my shorts? Every time a black man gets up here and says he loves a black woman, you a simp. How did we go from that right there, to which I just eloquently sung, to that right there? What happened in between those time spaces? See, when they get up here and they tell you all this negative shit about black people, make them respond and tell you what happened in between that time gap. That we would sing, we had artists that sing a song say, what a wonderful world this would be. So now, you're not even allowed to express love without being called a simp. And if you're a lady, you called a pick-me. How did we go from that to niggas with attitude, huh, O'Shea? Or Ice Cube? How did we go from that? Because that's why we are so controlled, because they use entertainers to sway your mind. Let me read something to you. I told you I give out books over here. I don't just talk about what I feel. That's what Charleston White does. That's what Umar Johnson does. Umar Johnson always wants you to think he's the smartest person in the world, but he never takes on debates. He never takes on debates like the real OGs. Dr. Yosef Ben Yakida, or we call him Nana Ben, or Nana John Henry Clark. He never takes on a debate, but he'll sit up here and tell you he's the most smartest person and he this and he that. Now, let me read y'all something, and I want you to gain understanding. Because just because you don't understand it don't mean it don't understand you. And this book is called The Tavistock Institute of Human Relations. Now there's several copies and there's several authors, but this one right here is John Coleman. It's the Tavistock Institute. And I want you to look up what the Tavistock Institute is. The Tavistock Institute of Human Relations. And I'm gonna read to you something. We're talking about entertainment and how entertainment controls your mind, right? This is where I'm going at. Now, and this is, even though I'm talking about entertainment, this is not just specific to entertainment. If we understand the mechanisms and the motives of the group mind, it is now possible to control and regiment the masses according to our will without them knowing it. Bernays postulated. I'm going to get to who Bernays is in a minute. Bernays postulated. He called this technique engineering consent. One of his best known techniques of achieving this goal was the indirect use of what he called third-party authorities to shape the desired opinions. Here's where it gets crazy. If you can influence the leaders, either with or without their conscious cooperation, you automatically influence the group in which they sway. This technique is called opinion making. Now, I'm going to read that one more time to you, and I'm going to give you the book on who said that and how important he is. If we understand the mechanisms and the motives of the group mind, it is now possible to control and regiment the masses according to our will, not your will, our will, without them knowing it. Bernays postulated. He called this technique engineering consent. One of his best known techniques for achieving this goal was the indirect use of what he called third-party authorities to shape the desired opinions. If you can influence the leaders, either with or without their conscious cooperation, you automatically influence the group in which they sway. This technique he called opinion making. Now, I just want to read that. And he also wrote this book right here. Propaganda. The Public Mind in the Making. Propaganda. Edward L. Bernays. See, and I'm going to continue to hammer that point home. Because what they want you to ultimately believe is everything is your fault. So when Charleston gets up there and does it yelling, I'm the baddest, I got my goddamn pepper spray. He ain't have that pepper spray that day that dude put them bones on his head in that barbershop. He didn't have that with him then. See, these are just characters. These are just characters. And they know that we are easily swayed by good characters and by characters, by what's the word I'm looking for? Animated characters. If you're well groomed and you sound like you know what you're talking about, our people automatically run. So the entertainment educates you or miseducates you, right? Economics. Now, I like to group all three of these together because how does entertainment and economics coincide? They get paid millions. They get paid a handsome ransom to miseducate you or blind you or distract you. Because I always used to say this, like, notice whenever we talking about something serious, notice whenever it's stuff with like people like the diddler. And the diddler and black males specifically, abuse, sexual misconduct, or anything, let's say it have something to do with messing with children, you always gonna have those Negro apologists in the crowd telling you this a distraction. They're just trying to keep you distracted. They're just trying to keep you distracted. And meanwhile, the distraction the whole time is the entertainment. The distraction is Glorilla. The distraction is Cardi B. The distraction are the Lakers. The distraction is LeBron James. The distraction is the boxing match. The distraction is the biggest one is what's coming up in a few weeks, Super Bowl. But because you on that negative frequency, and then they automatically want to start hollering about white boys. Well, you ain't saying nothing about Jerry Lee Lewis. Notice Umar Johnson is always on these podcasts defending people like the Diddler. He will try to take to task black people that call out the Diddler's nonsense. Because he operates at that frequency. He quick to defend the Diddler. He quick to defend R. Kelly. He quick to defend Bill Cosby. You can have your independent thoughts about this. And as I always say, whenever we try to point to the white boy and say, well, they just trying to make him the face of it. If you got a high level of racial consciousness or a high level of racial self-worth, you know that off top. I tell everybody, I say, look at this thing that happened a while ago called the Franklin scandal or the Franklin cover-up. But you don't want to understand that you're in a westernized society and you in the devil's playhouse. So it's his rules. You think they're gonna incriminate themselves? You think they're gonna incriminate Clive Davis? But the distraction is making you say, well, they're not saying nothing about that. Then you go to snitching. Well, they're not saying nothing about excerpt this person that's doing it. They're not saying nothing about excerpt that person that's doing it. Because you really are trained not to ever want to clean that behavior up. Because you'll sell your child out. You'll sell your community out for a good R. Kelly album. That's why people that got low racial self-worth, they always have to run the jump to save him. And they make him seem like he the victim. See, we can't clean up nothing if we don't understand the mess. If that dude was assaulted as a child, my heart go out to him. But we don't have time to free him because of his past. That means we would have to do that to every single person. And my question I always ask before I move on, if this was R. Kelly the mechanic, Robert Kelly, the school janitor, that was doing this and was caught pissing on a schoolgirl, would you feel that same way? And the answer is no. You know why? Because you're caught up in his ability to entertain you. See, that music give you that nostalgia, and you say, you're the only one I wanna slow dance with. I think that's him, ain't it? Forgive me if it's not. You love the way that music makes you feel. So you say, you get ignorant as ignorant can be. You say, fuck that shit. Man, I'm still gonna listen to him. That is the problem. You can listen to whatever the fuck you want to listen to. But it's when you double down and triple down and quadruple down your ignorance and you say, fuck that shit. I'm gonna listen to him. You can't make me stop listening to him. Of course, nobody ever said we could make you. But off of principle, I don't want to fuck with it. Off of principle, I don't fuck with Brian McKnight. And Brian McKnight is one of my favorite artists ever. But when you a fuck boy or a fuck girl, I stay fuck boy and fuck girl free. See, you still got that stuff permeating in your consciousness. That's why you think it's okay. Right? Let's move on. Labor. Labor, law, and politics. Those three run together. Right? So, much like entertainment, notice how hardworking they say, what they used to call James Brown, the hardest working man in show business. Right? But let's talk about the bottom level of labor. This is my interpretation. The bottom level of labor. This is where classism comes in. That they're rich off of the people on the bottom. Because they don't give a fuck about you. They don't give a fuck if they can get some cheap labor up out of you. And then people want to tell me black people can be just as racist too. Well, you do know black people can be just as racist too. And they want to talk on a surface level, but they don't want to talk about the systematic level. They want to talk about my ability to say F that white boy. And they think that that's the same as a systematic way of them being able to come up with economics to say, and come up with Jim Crow laws to say F us collectively. It's not the same. But that's your level of thinking, because that's your what? That's your level of racial self-worth. Your level of racial self-worth make you think that we could be just as racist. And we ain't never made one law to discriminate against them. In fact, we bring them in to teach them all kind of shit. They was just talking about last year on TikTok about the gingers, white gingers are black. You don't understand what you're talking about, right? Law and politics, they run right hand in hand. We're watching this in real time play out right now. As they up there smoking more white boys and white girls in Minnesota off of that. But they busy violating the law, but they talking about they up there on fraud. Because they can control your view of that. They don't care about crime. They want to control how you look at it. But you don't understand that. It's not your fault. It's by design. See, I'm not gonna get up here and cuss at you and call you that unless you come at me ignorant, then I will match that shit. Sometimes I might ignore you, but it depends on what you say and how I feel in that second. I just might let you know. Right? But politics, to me, that's the most, to me, my opinion again, that's the most westernized form of war right there. Because it ain't about them getting out there. Like I said the other day, we put too much on aesthetic. When real, quote unquote, how I want to say this word, I want to say gangsters. Yes, I will. Because to me, in my opinion, everything that's my opinion, I'm going to say my opinion, a gangster is nothing but a white supremacist. Because they're lawless, they violate. Right? A gangster ain't nothing but a white supremacist. A white supremacist ain't nothing but a gangster. See, when I seen that ignorant dude sitting up there talking about how much he loved Trump because Trump a gangster. He the first black president, he moved like a gangster. No, he moved like a white supremacist. Because the laws are only good if the people that uphold them. That's why I reject when I have these Morris people come in, beat me over the head, talking about you gotta understand the law. You gotta understand the law. Understand it for what? Not saying be ignorant to it. But if the Supreme Court right now is ruling in the tangerine touch's favor and dismantling things. What good is me going up here talking about people up here because they still don't want to accept reality. And they still saying ICE can't come in your house illegally. They ain't nothing they up there doing legal. But you're trying to hold on to the old way of yesteryear where they say, man, you know, you got this. How you have rights when they showing you time and time again that they can violate those rights, people? I'm not saying be ignorant to the law. I'm not saying be ignorant to voting. But what I am saying is don't bet your house on this shit because you in the devil's house and they make it up as they go and they change it to their will, not yours. That's what I'm saying. But y'all keep saying, you know, that I got rights. I was a black American. I'm a black American. They can't bother us, black Americans. And they up there smoking white boy. They up there smoking white Americans, and you talking about they can't bother you. Have you forgotten what it's like to be a black person in America? Don't let that shit hype you up to where you think this online TikTok, this online YouTube, this online Facebook, or wherever else they got these little sub pockets that sit up there call themselves black Americans and they run around thinking that they... You got to understand what time it is. You got to understand clearly. And if they say what they doing is constitutional, it ain't a violation of law. It's lawful. It's lawful when they do it, but when you do it, it comes down because they can move the law how they fit. They control it. And the last three: sex, religion, and war. How are we swayed in sex? Number one, the devaluing of our ladies. Because it's mighty funny that now they say, oh, that hoe ran through. Oh, that hoe ran through right there. That hoe ain't shit right there. That hoe ran through. Shit, I don't want to fuck with her. That hoe ran through. Hey, dog, do you know that hoe ran through? Right? But the whole premise of what they've been programming into lost women is what sells. Sex sells. They shaped it to use women in the video as sex symbols to make the video pop. You can't be serious of not being a part of not accepting the LGBT if you want your woman to have a threesome. You might not like two men. That's the only thing. You have a bias toward two men. But you think two women is different. Because that's the misogynistic shit they sold you. Because when you think misogynistic, when you think from a feminist point of view, you thinking like a white supremacist. You think like a white supremacist. Because notice, just like I did a video, and it was so funny. The reaction was so funny. Of a Karen ran up on another white boy. I knew he was a white boy because he said, yeah. Effed around and found out, didn't you? But I don't know what the hell happened, but they was looked like they was on the street or the freeway. And she got out of her car and in Karen fashion ran up on him, wanted a straight up attack. And he had pepper spray. He gave her a bump or two of that pepper spray. And you could tell that she was having a moment in her head because she wanted to keep on attacking, but then she realized, like, fuck. And the reason I bring that Karen up, because just like in a book, I told you I'm gonna give y'all books, 100 Years of Lynchings. More black males were unalive due to lying white girls. We could never be equal with these people. We talk about Emmett Till because that's the one that was magnified on a higher scale. But there were dozens of Emmett Till. There were hundreds of Emmett Tills looking menacing. These were the laws. These were the laws. Looking menacing at a white woman, frightening a white girl. There's one that I read where a brother was running, one of our ancestors was running for to catch the trolley cart. He brushed up against this white girl and she went to screaming. And the white lynch mob went and lynched him. We could never be equal. Stop listening to Charleston White. See, you don't understand trauma. A lot of people, I say all of us are traumatized. I would say if you are a black male or female, if you're a person, really, but we're talking about us. Black male or female, in this shit right here, you traumatized. You have some form of trauma, directly or indirectly, right? There was a study, the white mice, and then I'm gonna give you the one that I added, the area of people activity that I added. There was a study called With the White Mice. And let me show you how it works. And they had an original generation of mice, right? And they took the mice through electroshock. And it's almost like the Bobo doll experiment in a sense, right? So how you introduce aggression, how you introduce violence to somebody. It's a little different. I don't know if I'll say it like that. I'll put an asterisk by that statement. I don't know if I clearly think, but it could, I don't know. But anyway, the original generation of mice were introduced to electroshock. And the trauma got so bad to the mice that just the sound of the machine induced a level of trauma and fear into them. They went on to breed. The generation that had not been through it directly of mice, when they would hit that machine, had the same result or response. So we're talking about generations on top of generations on top of generations on top of generations of us dealing with trauma, directly or indirectly. Not talking about the trauma we have witnessed directly. We're just gonna talk about the indirect for a second. Laws like not getting off the curb fast enough in the presence of a white person. Having laughing barrels that if you were laughing, this is how you know white folks are so tender dick and insecure. That you had to stick your head in a barrel and laugh. And you better have a straight face when you come up. Or they felt like you were laughing at them. And wanted to do whatever they wanted because you laughing at me. Stop listening to that Charleston White. Umar Johnson is too traumatized. Umar Johnson is too much into his goddamn self to ever teach from a free perspective. Because he wants you to hit the cash out. And we laughed and we laughed and we thought that shit was cute when he say, you sent me $10, next time make it 20, but that might be all. And we laugh at that degeneracy. We laugh at that fuckery. We laugh at that buffoonery. We say, oh, you are so funny. Because also in that indirect trauma, it's indirect understanding of how to deal with anything. Most of us want to deal with stuff by just not dealing with it. I don't want to deal with that shit. Avoidance. So we never clean up the standard. We just let the standard go on. And a lot of people say, ooh, the black community is a lick. Damn, you can get over here and you can do whatever. You can mess with children. You can beat up on women. You can violate brothers. All you got to do is have a good message and they'll defend you. Yeah, they'll defend you. You don't even have to produce what you said you was gonna produce. Only thing you gotta do is keep delaying and keep being more arrogant and keep yelling when they ask you questions. We let the poorest of the poor character influence us and wonder why we fucked up. Because that's what you're looking at as leadership. That's what you're looking at as leadership right there. Somebody that's defending pedos. Somebody that's cussing you out about the diddler. And the diddler done fucked over how many black artists? But you tell me you love your people. You tell me you stand for your race. Because they want you to adjust and they want to get into your mind and they want to impress in your mind that S.A.N. is okay. That pissing on a little girl is okay because where the parents was. And the low frequency say, repeat that shit and say, well, where the parents was. Where the parents was. I don't care what he did. I ain't gonna stop listening. Well, you got some R. Shelleys out there too. None of those responses actually give a fuck about children. None of those responses actually give a fuck about black people on that level. They just want to move they just want to rationalize so you shut the fuck up so they can feel comfortable about their position. Have your position on the field. I got mine. If I have a party and I say don't play that shit, I mean that. If you have a party and you say play that, that's your rule. And he called himself the Pied Piper for a reason. Because anybody know about that story, the Pied Piper, he was able to sway people through his musical abilities. I don't care what he do. And the reason I step on his neck so bad is because how people respect him. How people run to his defense. Now he ain't the only one that do it. For you fucktards that'll get in my comments and say, well, he ain't the only one. That's the problem. When you say that, that is the fucking problem, that he's not the only one. That is, there's tons of them that we probably don't even know about that's worse than him. But we allow it. We allow it. And the last one is, like my drum roll, media. The last one that we are ruled in, media/social media. Social media has taken on its own entity. The mind scatter of the people since the, shall I say media and technology? The mind scatter of people since is insane. Insane. Because that is the biggest programming tool. Misogyny, feminism has gotten on steroids, in my opinion, since certain social media platforms. Because there's a pocket for you to get in. There's a red pill pocket, and there's this crazy deranged feminist. We hate all men. All men is this. And I see it all the time, and I just sit back and I observe it, to where you'll have females that will, much like the males, but you'll have females that will host panels or lives, and the topic is always talking about something derogatory toward. They don't want to look at, it doesn't fit their narrative to talk about the percentage of good men. And what this does is condition more to see black men as a threat. And you run to the arms of Kevin Costner's and say, white boys treat you better. Because you're looking through those rose-colored lenses. You swear, because you have told yourself, because of the way they present, we are not the most violent. We are the most exploited. We are the most shown. We are the most conditioned. I tap on black males' head because it takes black men to speak to low vibrational black males. It takes black women to speak to low vibrational black females. I tap on black males' heads, but I'm never confused about why that male is sick. Now I ain't gonna give them a pass because sometimes they so sick they beyond the point of fixing. But you can't just live in the diagnosis. You can't live in Charleston White's angle to where he just always diagnosing and always telling you they still popping pills. Why they still popping pills? Because the entertainment or the music section caters to that. Pop the Molly, I'm sweating. Woo! I'm starting to see spaceships on Bankhead. Those songs, when they were introduced, they introduced them to your subconscious. So you might not even like the song, but they would play it so much and they put it in a commercial and they put it over here and they put it over there. You begin to start singing that goddamn song and you don't even know why you singing it because it has been introduced to your subconscious. But because you think you got a choice and you got free will, when you ain't got nothing but Popeyes and McDonald's in your neighborhood. But you go to the westernized or the white neighborhoods, there's Harris Teeter, there's Whole Foods, there's Natural Foods, there's Red Robin, there's this, there's that, a different level of what? Choices. Sometimes your choices, just like voting, your choices are only given to you. Right? That's what I want y'all to understand. I'm not a popular pick because I'm not cooning. I'm not selling nothing. I'm not telling you to buy my oil about it, and I'm not knocking nobody that hustle. But long as you represent right. Long as you represent right. Because we need economics. But when you get a traumatized nigga like Charleston White getting up screaming at you, or you got a traumatized fucker like Umar Johnson that's sitting up here telling you he this and he that, and I don't have to be accountable for that school. Just give me the money. With his little crack twitch. Allegedly. You gotta stop falling for the banana in the tailpipe, people. These people don't never give y'all books. These people don't never give y'all no resources. And y'all listen to them because they meet you where you are. You ever heard that saying? They say meet the person. You gotta meet the people where they at. And a lot of them, they're not stupid. They're conniving. They're not stupid. Charleston White's not stupid. Umar Johnson is not stupid. They're conniving. I always say, Charleston reminds me of Law 6, court attention at all costs. So that's why he jumps up and he screams and he talks about he got the mace on him because he knows he's here to entertain. There is nothing he won't say. There is nothing. He will talk about disabled children. He will talk about this, but he's just like a white boy. The moment you say something to him, he's just like a Karen or a Ken. The moment you say something to him, he's going to run to the police. If he know you have a probation officer, he gonna call your probation officer. And for black males that think what he's saying is so true, and y'all have a problem, because if it was a female version that would call and making it their damnness to get black men incarcerated, you would have a problem with her. And before I go, some of my lasting points before I go is, that's why you're caught, because we can't see ourselves as a whole. In the dichotomy or the split, you split and you say black. And this is no indictment toward my nana, a great teacher, Malcolm. But black women are the most disrespected on the planet. True, check. But black men are the most disrespected on the planet. Check. Also, what I never hear nobody mention, black children are the most disrespected on the planet. You know why? Because black people are the most disrespected on the planet. And I'm out. Peace.